approach this podium with mixed emotions. Honored that my family reposed enough confidence in me to pay this final tribute on their behalf, but absolutely and totally devastated by the harsh reality that an amazing journey with our companion, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, and hero has come to an end. Admittedly, I have agonized over this moment. How? How can mere words capture his larger-than-life personality? How can mere words lend to his kindness and selflessness? How can mere words convey the depth of his love and unwavering support that his family and closest friends have become ever so reliant upon? But thankfully, the inadequacy of my words is of no consequence, because his life and his work resoundingly conveyed the goodness of his heart. And without a doubt, he managed to leave an indelible mark on the lives of all whom he came into contact with. With that said, today I choose not to focus too much on his innumerable accomplishments and accolades, but I choose to focus on his legacy. And in my humble view, his legacy is simple yet profound. It is one of service. Service to his God, service to his fellow men, and service to his beloved St. Kitts and Nevis. As a child, I recall several interesting stories from my aunts, who described my father's love for medicine as innate. It is my understanding that at the tender age of 4, he could not bear to see his older sister suffer from a toothache, so he told her to stand still, and with a young breadfruit, he took aim, and the tooth and the toothache were no more. I also recall the story of a hen who, in the process of trying to squeeze under a barbed wire fence, managed to rip her guts out. However, young Cutie, as he was affectionately called, armed with a needle and thread, sewed up the hen's stomach so well, in fact, that a few months later, that very hen laid eggs. Although these stories fascinated me as a child, it was only until I became an adult that I realized that my father's love of medicine was inextricably bound to his love of God. He often emphasized that God had given him a divine gift, the gift of healing. And of all the professions on earth, the medical doctor was the only profession which played an integral role in the mystery of life and death. In other words, he believed that the ideal way to serve his God was by ushering new life into the world and by healing and caring for God's greatest creation, the human being. Like many of you, I am astounded by the fact that at one time my father was responsible for delivering an estimated 50% of the population here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Additionally, I chuckle at the many stories which demonstrate the fiery passion with which he ran the Joseph and France Hospital. But it really wasn't until after his death that I fully grasped what a profound impact that he had on the lives of those he cared for. He had an unexplainable, almost spiritual connection with his patients, and they with him. Only that connection could explain the resolve of a former patient now residing in the UK who insisted that irrespective of the cost, she had to be here today because Dr. Sebastian saved her baby and her life. Only that connection could explain the devotion and commitment of former patients like Lydia Manners, better known as Dumpling, who was not only a patient, but a warrior for Dr. Sebastian, even to the very end. What a gift, what a life, what a legacy. Beyond service as a medical doctor, my father dedicated his life in service to the well-being of family members, friends, and even strangers. In this regard, only one word comes to mind: generosity. Generosity was the hallmark of my father's life, and perhaps it is the hallmark of his legacy. Because of his generosity, countless have avoided the pitfalls of life. Because of his generosity, countless have had the opportunity at an education. Because of his generosity, countless have made a better life for themselves and their families. Most outstanding, at least in my mind, is the fact that he didn't give simply because he had it to give. He gave because he was a believer in bettering people, in uplifting people. What better way to serve your fellow man than to give him an opportunity? This was a true testament to the faith he had in mankind. What a gift, what a life, what a legacy. Despite his generosity, he, like all of us, had his detractors and persecutors. However, what was most remarkable about the man was his ability to transcend the immature and petty, and to earnestly and completely forgive. As someone extremely protective of my father, this quality irked me to the core, and I often summed it up as a weakness. However, just after his passing, our dear family friend, Dr. Wycliffe Beard, shared an encounter that he had with my father, which I fervently believe was my father's way of emphasizing the importance of forgiveness. Apparently, some years ago, Dr. Beard was harboring ill feelings toward a certain individual. And my father, in counseling him, described left with him what he describes and what I too describe as life-changing advice. My father said, "Malice and anger destroys the person who carries the malice and anger. It does nothing to the person against whom the malice and anger is carried." Dr. Beard has never forgotten this lesson. I will never either. What a gift, what a life, what a legacy. It would almost be impossible to speak of my father without mentioning his remarkable service to this country. In fact, he dedicated an astounding 77 years of active service, starting as a pupil teacher at the tender age of 15 and culminating with his retirement from the post of Governor General at the age of 92. However, despite holding several extraordinary positions, he never lost that common touch. He never lost his connection with ordinary people. So much so that his annual New Year's Day open house at his private residence became somewhat of a phenomenon, because for one day, irrespective of your political affiliation, irrespective of your financial status, and irrespective of your social status, you were welcomed. And for that one day, the barriers that so starkly divide us as a nation were broken down. I firmly believe that it was this very ideal that guided his path as Governor General. Upon his appointment in 1996, he was determined to redefine the role. He was determined to make a position which was once viewed as far removed and aloof into one that the ordinary citizen could identify with. I distinctly remember that his first order of business was to visit all schools in St. Kitts and Nevis, as he believed it was important for our nation's children to feel a connection to their Governor General. This move was unprecedented. Another trademark of his tenure was his willingness to patronize. His mantra was simple: if they invite me, I will go. And irrespective of whether the event catered to kings or commoners, he approached it with dignity and humility, only requiring one thing: that the event start on time. Quite naturally, his tenure was not without its challenges, but because my father was so rooted in principle, principle over personality, principle over power, principle over politics, that he managed to soar above the fray and to stand out as a shining example for all people. In fact, I submit that if William Shakespeare had the pleasure of basing one of his renowned plays on Sir Cuthbert's life, it would be entitled A Man for All People. What a gift, what a life, what a legacy. Finally, as my father's baby girl, and the one who just would not leave the comfort of his nest, I wish to end on a personal note. At the age of 7, a little boy brought it to my attention that my father was old, and as he put it, he gone dead soon. This prospect traumatized me, and I prayed to God every night that my father would live long enough to walk me down the aisle. Well, my God is awesome, because not only was he able to walk me down the aisle twice, but at the age of 93, with failing mobility, my father insisted that I would have a father-daughter dance if it was the last thing that he did. And though he stumbled, we danced, and we danced, and we danced. This moment will be forever etched in my memory. I will also cherish the memories of his indomitable spirit and his zest for living, which manifested itself in his love for our country's folklore and carnival. I will forever hear his bellowing voice in the halls of our home on Keon Street, summoning us one by one, because under no circumstances was anyone allowed to miss the New Year's Day parade. Even in the face of sickness, he was determined to take in what would be his final New Year's Day parade on January 1st of this year. And as always, the sights and sounds brought him incredible joy. But alas, the end was near. And on March 25th, 2017, as you took your final breath, you left a permanent void in our lives and our hearts. We will forever miss your wise counsel and your companionship. We will forever miss the gleam in your eyes when you spoke of the accomplishments of your children, particularly your 3 sons, the medical doctors, Jiron, Tony, and Cutie. Daddy was incredibly proud of you. We will forever miss the tenderness with which you treated your nieces and nephews, who also had the privilege of calling you Daddy. We will forever miss the radiance of your smile as you looked into the eyes of your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. Oh, how you spoiled them. But we take comfort in the fact that you died the way you lived, fearlessly and peacefully. As you once said, you have served your God with the zeal of a neophyte. You have served your fellow men with the devotion of a believer. And you have served your country with the tenacity of a visionary. This is your legacy. And because of it, we are better as a family, and we are better as a nation. Because of you, tomorrow's sun will be brighter with hope of healing, tolerance, generosity, compassion, peace, and most importantly, togetherness. Cutie, Doctor, Sir Cuthbert, Daddy, well done, well done. May the loving arms of God surround you as you sleep in eternal peace.